I think a lot of people have forgotten that Jeffrey Epstein's death in prison happened during the first Trump administration. So anything that would be released that would suggest that something unusual happened the night that he died would come back to roost for the previous Trump Department of Justice and presumably former Attorney General William Barr. My opinion generally is that some figures in the Trump administration were kind of chosen as a PR move and that they're not actually in charge of what they're nominally in charge of.
The Epstein cover-up runs deeper than anyone admits, and the names tied to it will shock you. That's the latest warning from Whitney Webb, professional writer and investigative journalist. Whitney Webb has exposed a network where the lines between business, politics, and intelligence blur in ways that most people can't imagine. She believes that Epstein is not a lone predator. He was an asset in a system designed to manipulate and compromise. Tech firms vacuum up your private data, the same way Epstein collected leverage, and the people behind it all move in the same circles. Major industries have been pulled into this ecosystem of profit and power, while the public is fed distractions and edited clips. Make sure to stick around until the end of the video as Whitney Webb breaks down the shocking connections and why this scandal refuses to die.
In the 2024 campaign, there was a lot of signaling, not just from Trump, but from, J.D. Vance and some of these other figures, some of Trump's children, on social media, and I believe also interviews, basically promising the release of Epstein documents if Trump were to be elected. And this is also true of things that were stated by the current FBI director and FBI deputy director. And, a few months before things really exploded with Trump getting kind of feisty on his social media posts, we had, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and sort of basically come out and say Epstein definitely killed himself and all this stuff. And then Pam Bondi, kind of followed suit. And then they released this video that has a minute missing, which obviously, is going to make people that think Epstein didn't kill himself, or at least didn't kill himself without help from the outside. It's not going to put any conspiracies to rest if there's like a minute plus missing, and then the metadata shows that the video was edited. And so there's been all this backpedaling, but it's very bizarre that they would mishandle this so extensively. I mean, maybe they thought that the base didn't really care that much, or that they could distract them with something else eventually if they never had the intention to release these things, which is what seems to be the case. But now, I think now they're trying to use the distraction or develop new distractions, as soon as this kind of boiled over and really kind of splintered and angered a large segment of Trump's base. There were releases of, documents on the MLK assassination, and Tulsi Gabbard has now been releasing stuff on Russiagate, and Trump is putting all the stuff like AI videos of Obama getting arrested. So now it's kind of trying to shift gears and get the base riled up about something else and be like, please forget about the Jeffrey Epstein case. But it's kind of, it's really bizarre. Particularly the most bizarre of it all would be Trump's own response. He obviously fails to understand how a large segment of his base feels about this case by trying to, wash it away and call it a Democrat invented hoax. And all of this stuff. It's complicated. I think a lot of people have forgotten that Jeffrey Epstein's death in prison happened during the first Trump administration. So anything that would be released that would suggest that something unusual happened the night that he died would come back to roost for the previous Trump Department of Justice and presumably former Attorney General William Barr. And somehow a lot of people have forgotten that. My opinion generally is that some figures in the Trump administration were kind of chosen as a PR move and that they're not actually in charge of what they're nominally in charge of. So like Pete Hegseth, head of the Pentagon, he's kind of a Fox and Friends, he's a TV show host. And the deputy director of the Pentagon, Steve Feinberg, of Cerberus Capital, is most likely the person actually running the Pentagon, not Hegseth, in my opinion. And I think that's true also for RFK Jr. in charge of HHS. I don't really think he's running. He's just kind of this figure that connected with Trump's base, particularly during the COVID era, and made them think reforms would come. And those reforms haven't really come, but he's kind of there to give the impression that things have changed. But the person behind him, the deputy secretary, is Jim O'Neill, who's a career affiliate of Peter Thiel, who's also the power behind J.D. Vance and, the man that made Palantir what it is. And so, I think it's just a way of sort of masking the people that are actually running stuff. And I think that's probably true, too, of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who were basically out there. They were making the rounds on podcasts and were making these connections and building trust and relationships with the public in Trump space. But it seems like they're not actually running anything, in my opinion. They're kind of figureheads in a way, and they're willing figureheads. Again, I don't really know what to think about it. It's very odd. And I think either it was a drastic underestimation of how much this case matters to the American public, or maybe it was something else that, has yet to make itself apparent. I honestly don't know, but it's definitely been very bizarre, and a lot of the comms have been seem to have been, it's just been bungled, frankly.
Whitney referenced the 2024 campaign as a turning point when Trump, J.D. Vance, and even members of Trump's own family publicly hinted that Epstein documents could be released if Trump returned to the White House. The FBI's top brass seemed to signal the same, stoking hope among Trump's base that long-buried truths were finally coming. But what followed was a cascade of confusion. Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and Pam Bondi appeared in a stiff, almost hostage-like video, insisting Epstein really killed himself, while a surveillance clip was released with a full minute missing, and metadata proving it had been edited. Webb argues this bizarre series of walkbacks and distractions suggests the political establishment never intended to release anything. Instead, it appears designed to bury the Epstein story once again, leaving the public angry, suspicious, and divided. Now, let's hear more of what Whitney Webb has to say.
The video, that's the Epstein jail cell surveillance video that was sort of released as a there's nothing to see here, but they hadn't cleared the metadata, and it was apparent that there was missing content from this video.
Yeah, and apparently also, it focuses on a few cell doors, but those weren't the doors to Epstein's cell. In the bottom, you can see the path to a stairwell that leads to where Epstein's cell was. So it's not even really that, the entry to where Epstein was is not actually the focus of the video, but I guess having it on those doors makes people think that kind of misleadingly, those were the doors to where Epstein was. And that's not the case. And were there other, stairwells or entrances to that block of cells where Epstein was that weren't on film? I mean, again, it's not conclusive at all.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just saying it's not conclusive at all necessarily, even if there wasn't time missing in the video. I started a new series, which is called First Friends, which is sort of like a play on, like First Lady. And yeah, the idea is what you said, exploring the possibility of figures close to Donald Trump, still close to Donald Trump, that have unusual, or rather that have never been reported about connections to Epstein. Which suggests that, if I could find it, I'm sure the New York Times and these people could have found it too. And why haven't they reported on it, especially if there's blood in the water against their least favorite president, right? So the first person in this series is about a man named Flavio Briatore, who's probably best known for his career as a top guy in Formula One racing in Europe. He's Italian. He's also pretty well known for having dated and been engaged at one time to Naomi Campbell, and later fathering Heidi Klum's first child, Lenny Klum. But beyond that, he's a longtime friend of Donald Trump. As I put in the article, there's a video of them together doing the Italian edition of The Apprentice, because, as Trump says in the video, when it was time to bring The Apprentice to Italy, there were lots of people that wanted to star in it, but he only wanted one person, and that was his longtime friend, Flavio, and they talk about their long-term friendship in that clip for those that are interested. But Flavio Briatore has a few unusual links to the Epstein case, which I explore here. And one of them has to do with the Black Book itself. The Black Book is this book of contacts that are Epstein's, but Epstein didn't necessarily write it. His staff wrote it. And so it wasn't just one staff member, it was a few members of his staff in his Palm Beach residence that compiled this list of contacts. But it was deemed legitimate enough to be used as evidence in Ghislaine Maxwell's trial a couple years ago. So it's considered to give it was then considered to give a relatively accurate portrayal of the time of sort of, frequently contacted figures in Epstein's world during, the particular period of time that the Palm Beach case in particular spanned. And so that book became public. Well, it was originally published and made actually public by the investigative journalist Nick Bryant, who's also known for investigating the Franklin scandal, which is sort of a Reagan-Bush era pedophile scandal involving government officials. And he published that at Gawker, I believe, in 2015, but he came into possession of it sometime, I think, around 2012 or so, he said. But prior to that, the FBI obtained it from Jeffrey Epstein's former butler, Alfredo Rodriguez, who died the same year it was published in 2015. But earlier, he had tried to basically sell the Black Book, initially to one of the victims' lawyers, Brad Edwards, who works with Stanley Pottinger at, I forget the name of their law firm, but they're two of the main Epstein lawyers. And so instead of buying the book, I mean, obviously it's fair that he wouldn't pay an enormous, the large sum that Rodriguez was asking for it. But Edwards instead tipped off the FBI and basically sicked the FBI on this guy. And the FBI set up a sting operation to buy the book from him, and Rodriguez went to prison, which later Epstein, when he was asked about it, said about the Black Book, he was like, it never should have been published. It was terrible that it was published, but now my butler, or, my former butler is in prison for, the crime of publishing it. Of course, I'm paraphrasing. That's not a direct quote, but that was essentially what he was saying. So he agreed with Rodriguez being put away. And it's important to point out that Epstein was an FBI informant during this period. So, there may have been some duplicity there, but again, I don't know. But what's important here is that Rodriguez, and when he tried to shop this book around, he circled names that he said were co-conspirators and material witnesses to Epstein's sex trafficking crimes. So Flavio Briatore is one of the circled names. Alan Dershowitz is a circled name. Leslie Wexner, Jean-Luc Brunel, who is the French accomplice of Epstein that died in prison while awaiting trial in 2022. And then Donald Trump is also a circled name, which oddly enough hasn't really gotten a lot of coverage over the years. Nick Bryant, of course, talked about that, but a lot of people act like Trump was never accused. And then Brad Edwards later went out and said to Derek Brose, when he was interviewed by him, that Trump had actually been very helpful. But of course, Trump and Epstein at that point had a personal falling out. And also Brad Edwards' law partner, Stanley Pottinger, has kind of a suspect history, sort of acting like the Democrat equivalent of William Barr, which is basically a mop-up man for government scandals. Over the course of his lengthy career as a lawyer working on behalf of the government and the Department of Justice. So there's a lot of question marks there.
Whitney Webb explains that the surveillance video, presented as proof that nothing suspicious happened, was full of problems. The metadata revealed a missing minute, and the camera didn't even focus on Epstein's actual cell door. Instead, it watched a nearby hallway and a stairwell leading toward his block, misleading viewers into thinking it showed the key entry point. This only deepened public suspicion and fueled the sense that something was being hidden. Webb ties this moment to the broader distraction campaign. AI videos, sudden pivots to unrelated scandals, and the rollout of Trump allies insisting there was no cover-up. Something big is happening, and all we can do is wait for the truth to break through the cracks they can't hide forever. Anyway, guys, before we go, if you want to stay most up to date on the crypto and Bitcoin world, subscribe to my daily 5-minute crypto newsletter. It's a concise resource for the latest expert predictions, breaking news, and top on-chain analysis, trusted by over 90,000 subscribers for insightful crypto investment information. Don't miss out on the opportunity to stay informed in the crypto market. The link is in the description below. I hope you all enjoyed today's video and that it gave you some value. I'll see you all at the next one, and as always, all the best.